Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you, the case of Marina Menegazzo and Maria Jose Coni. Marina Menegazzo, 21, and Maria Jose Coni, 22, embarked on a highly anticipated trip in 2016. Little did they know that this journey would turn into one of the most high-profile investigations in Latin America over the past decade. At the time, Maria Jose Coni was studying economics at the National University of Cuyo, while Marina Menegazzo was pursuing a degree in speech therapy at Aconcagua University. Both girls volunteered at an organization that supported people living on the streets. Those who knew them described the girls as cheerful and close to their families. The two friends, along with two others, set off on a journey on January 10th. After splitting up with their companions, Marina and Maria Jose continued on their own. Their route could be tracked through Maria Jose's Instagram posts. On January 13th, they were in Cusco, the former capital of the Inca Empire in Peru. The next day, an image was posted, also taken in Cusco. Another image was published on January 15th, showing the girls on a railway bridge near the Machu Picchu hydroelectric power plant. The ancient Inca city of Machu Picchu, known as the City Above the Clouds, is one of Peru's most famous attractions and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Based on their Instagram activity, it appears the girls spent several days in the area. On January 18th, Maria shared two more photos from her current location. The next day, January 19th, she bid farewell to Cusco by posting an image. By January 23rd, the girls had already arrived in Manta, Ecuador, where Maria posted a photo taken on Monita Beach. Over the next 10 days, they traveled along Ecuador's coast and then headed inland. On February 4th, Maria posted a photo from San Antonio, followed by one from Banos on February 6th. On February 10th, Maria shared a photo featuring all four girls, marking the end of their journey that began on January 10th. This farewell post came as two girls from the group prepared to return home to Argentina. Maria Jose Coni and Marina Menegazzo still had around 10 days of vacation left, so they decided to take their time and revisit Montanita, where their Ecuadorian adventure had first begun. On February 22nd, Maria uploaded a photo of herself with Marina to her Instagram account, which was her last post. That same day, the girls informed their families in Argentina that they would be returning home soon. They outlined their travel plans, which involved taking a bus from Ecuador to Lima, Peru, where they would spend the night at a friend's house. From there, they would fly to Santiago, Chile on February 25th, and then take a bus to their hometown of Mendoza, Argentina. The girls also warned their relatives that they would have limited phone signal for a couple of days, making it difficult to contact them. However, as the days passed, their relatives were unable to reach them, and there was no activity on their social media accounts. This led to growing concern among their relatives. Marina's sister was the first to draw attention to this case on social media, posting a photo of two girls with a plea for help. The caption read, "My sister and her friend vanished on Monday 22nd in Montita, Ecuador. Please share this information." The families of the missing girls wanted to know if they had left the country and boarded their flight, but the airline refused to provide any information, stating they would only disclose this after receiving a court order. Furthermore, the friends with whom the girls had planned to spend the night before their departure reported that they never showed up. As a result, Marina and Maria's relatives contacted the emergency services in Ecuador to report the disappearance, and also reached out to the Argentine consulate for assistance. On February 27th, the consulate stepped in to help with the case. Argentina's authorities had sent fingerprints of both girls to Ecuador for a specific reason. Just a few days earlier, on February 25th, the body of an unknown woman was discovered in Montanita and taken to Gil. By comparing the fingerprints provided by the Argentine police with those of the unidentified body, it was determined that the body was that of Maria Jose Coni. On Saturday, February 27th, the police examined the area where Maria's body was found and discovered the body of Marina Menegazzo just 43 yards away. Both bodies were wrapped in plastic bags and bound with duct tape. According to the Ecuadorian police, Marina's body was initially hidden from view by the perpetrator, who attempted to conceal it by placing an object on top of it. The autopsy revealed that Maria Jose died from blunt force trauma to the head, and she had genital injuries, a broken femur, and a broken toe. Additionally, marks on her wrists suggested that she was tied up. Marina Menegazzo died from 6 stab wounds to the neck, and she also had marks on her wrists, indicating that she too was tied up. The reports concluded that the girls died on February 23rd. The toxicological analysis showed that their blood contained a large amount of a psychiatric medication, suggesting that they did not take the drug voluntarily and may not have even known they had consumed it. This implies that someone may have added the drug to their food or drinks. Only 24 hours after the second body was discovered, a major breakthrough in the case sparked a range of reactions from the girls' families, the president, and Ecuador's interior minister. The police had apprehended 33-year-old Alberto Segundo Mina Ponce and 39-year-old Aurelio Eduardo Rodriguez, who confessed to the crimes and recounted the events in detail. Bloodstains were found at Mina Ponce's residence, and Marina's mobile phone, backpack, and other belongings were discovered nearby. What was particularly striking, apart from the swift arrest, was the defendant's immediate confession. This development resonated with those following the case. According to their account, the men described exactly what had happened. Ecuador's Interior Minister, Jose Serrano, stated that the girls had left the hotel where they were staying on February 22nd at 2 p.m. after being robbed of all their money. They had planned to hitchhike to Lima, but this version was disputed by the hotel owner, who denied that anyone had stolen from the girls. The families of Maria and Marina also questioned this story, as the girls had credit cards with no activity recorded on them. It is possible that someone stole the cash and credit cards from the girls, but they still had access to their account funds, which they could have used to pay for things online, such as booking a trip. However, they did not do so. According to Ecuador's Minister of the Interior, the girls visited a bar and asked the owner for a couple of glasses of water because they were thirsty and had no money. The bar owner confirmed this, stating that she gave them water because they were penniless. Whether someone actually stole all of Maria and Marina's money remains unclear. The minister elaborated on the events, referencing the confessions of the suspects. According to Ponce, around 8 p.m. on that day, Rodriguez told him about 2 Argentine girls he had met at a bar. Ponce and Rodriguez approached the girls, Marina and Maria, and struck up a conversation. The girls claimed they were hitchhiking to Lima because they couldn't afford bus fare. However, this account raises several questions, as the girls had already purchased plane tickets from Lima to Santiago, Chile, and were due to depart on February 25th. Local police found witnesses who corroborated this version of events. The girls needed a place to stay for the night, but they lacked the money for a hotel or hostel. Ponce offered to let them spend the night at his house, and they accepted. A taxi driver confirmed that he had driven Marina, Maria, and Ponce to the house. According to the Ecuadorian authorities, Ponce then returned to the bar with Rodriguez, leaving Marina and Maria alone in the house. The heavily intoxicated men returned home around 2:30 a.m., but Maria and Marina were not there. The police investigation revealed that the girls had gone to a nearby store to buy soda, which was confirmed by the store cashier. According to Ponce's testimony, when the girls returned to the house, Ponce stayed in a room with Maria Coni, while Rodriguez was in another room with Marina Menegazzo. Ponce wanted to persuade Maria to have intimate relations with him, but she resisted and tried to leave the house. Ponce then grabbed a stick and hit Maria on the head, causing her to die instantly. At the same moment, he heard a scream coming from the other room. When he entered the room, he saw that Rodriguez had killed Marina. Rodriguez immediately left the house afterwards. Ponce admitted that he then started thinking about how to dispose of the bodies. He attempted to remove all traces of evidence from the house and wrap the bodies in plastic bags using duct tape. In the afternoon, he borrowed a cart from an acquaintance and transported the bodies to a deserted area near the ocean shore, approximately 440 yards from his home. The authorities discovered several inconsistencies in the case. Despite the marks on the girls' wrists, there was no explanation. Furthermore, the toxicological analysis revealed that both girls had traces of a potent drug in their blood. The girls' families suspected a possible link to human trafficking and believed that the Ecuadorian authorities were involved in a cover-up. The families had several reasons to doubt the official story. Firstly, the girls had run out of money, yet they hadn't used their credit cards. Secondly, they were under the influence of drugs. Notably, the only witnesses who saw Maria and Marina that day were the ones who corroborated the authorities' version of events. It seemed strange that the bodies were found 2 days apart, only 43 yards from each other, in a town with just 5,000 residents. Additionally, it was peculiar that Maria and Marina sought help from Ponce and Rodriguez, given that there were many Argentine tourists in Monita, and it would have been more logical for the girls to approach someone from their own country for assistance. The brother of one of the victims reported seeing used syringes on the floor when the Ecuadorian police took him to the crime scene, but these syringes later vanished, and the experts who examined the area claimed they never existed. The family believes that the two accused men were just a diversion from a larger issue, possibly human trafficking. A second autopsy and new toxicology tests were scheduled by the authorities. It was also discovered that both defendants repeatedly altered their accounts of what happened. In one version, Mina Ponce denied involvement in the crime, stating that the perpetrator was a Venezuelan illegal substance dealer known as El Chamo, who lived in the area. The police arrested this man, but he claimed to have no connection to the incident and was willing to take a polygraph test or provide a DNA sample. Several DNA samples were recovered at the crime scene, including those from Mina Ponce and the two deceased girls. Additionally, there were multiple unidentified DNA samples that did not match Rodriguez, the alleged accomplice, nor El Chamo, who was cleared as a suspect following thorough DNA testing. The second autopsy, performed by Argentine experts, revealed that both girls were in a vulnerable state and unable to defend themselves prior to their deaths, indicating they were coerced into sexual activity. The autopsy also showed that Maria Jose had bruises and scratches exclusively on one side of her body, suggesting she may have been thrown from a moving vehicle. Furthermore, a new toxicology report confirmed that both girls had been drugged with a potent substance used in psychiatric treatment, which can suppress a person's will. Next, a reaction swept across Latin America. Sadly, a common phenomenon occurred. People placed the blame for their deaths on the girls themselves. Not only did ordinary internet users do this, but so did prominent public figures. One notable example is Maria Cristina Rivera, the Deputy Minister of Tourism for Ecuador. During the same period when news of Maria and Marina's deaths was circulating, Berlin hosted a tourism fair. Rivera gave an interview to a German news agency, but stating that the way the girls traveled made it inevitable that something bad would happen to them. She also commented that she had never visited Monita, as it didn't align with her social status. This was a disturbing case of victim blaming at the state level. Following Rivera's interview, the Ecuadorian government issued an apology to the families of Maria and Marina and terminated the woman's employment. The Argentine psychiatrist, Hugo Martin, faced intense criticism for his remarks, in which he referred to the girls as favorable victims and suggested that they somehow provoked others into committing crimes. Martin later claimed that his words had been misinterpreted, stating that he never intended to imply that criminals were not responsible for their actions. The trial, which began on August 8, 2016, was plagued by setbacks, including 3 changes in prosecutors, significantly delaying the process. Despite these challenges, the prosecution presented a substantial amount of evidence, including over 200 pieces of physical evidence from the crime scene and witness statements. The police had discovered some of the girls' personal belongings, biological fluids, and phones at the crime scene and in the adjacent house. Throughout the trial, Ponce maintained his innocence, claiming that his initial confession was made under police pressure. This assertion only fueled the suspicion of the girls' families, who believed that the Ecuadorian authorities were concealing information. Rodriguez, meanwhile, altered his testimony, implicating Colombian drug dealers in the girls' deaths. In the first week of the trial, the prosecutor revealed that additional individuals may have been involved, as the police had found 3 more male DNA samples at the scene, in addition to those of Rodriguez and Ponce. Ultimately, the court handed down the maximum sentence under Ecuadorian law, sentencing both Alberto Ponce and Eduardo Rodriguez to 40 years in prison. In November 2016, Ecuadorian authorities arrested José Luis Pérez Castro, a 34-year-old man, after finding his DNA at the crime scene. According to his defense, Castro had lived in the house a few weeks prior to the incident, and his blood was found on the wall due to a dental infection. The lawyers also claimed that Castro's DNA was found on the girls' bodies because he had touched furniture or objects that the police had also touched. However, Castro's defense began to fall apart when a dentist testified. It emerged that Castro had visited the dentist, but only 2 weeks after the discovery of Marina and Maria's bodies. Castro asked the dentist for a note confirming his dental infection, but the dentist refused, finding no health issues during the examination. The dentist ultimately kicked Castro out. José Luis Castro, like Alberto Ponce and Eduardo Rodriguez, was sentenced to 40 years in prison, despite maintaining his innocence until the end. The girls' families questioned the official account provided by the Ecuadorian authorities, even though the families had ensured that Argentine police officers were involved in the investigation. The Ecuadorian authorities' version of events has remained unchanged, and the search for other individuals whose DNA samples were found at the house is still ongoing to this day. Perhaps only in movies can women be assassins or hired soldiers. In real life, 8 out of 10 criminals are men, according to statistics. If women do commit violent acts, they usually do so as accomplices or instigators. Alongside the elderly, disabled, and minors, women often appear as victims. They differ from men not only physiologically, but also psychologically. The behavior of the male half of humanity is aggressive and provocative, unlike that of women. Women are more gentle, emotional. They enter a state of hypnosis more easily, are more quickly and strongly affected by anesthetics and psychoactive substances, are more prone to depression, and are more susceptible to deceit and manipulation. A woman is always guided by love, compassion, creation. However, their aspirations are not always shared by the partners they choose for life. This leads to a confrontation of 2 principles, often destructive for the weaker party in the relationship. Whenever something extraordinary happens, such as a disappearance or a crime against life, the entire city or even the country empathetically follows the developments, especially if the crime is publicized and the potential criminal shows no remorse for their actions. This is a story about another mysterious crime against a young woman that shook Orange Beach, Alabama, USA, on the calendar May 19, 2016. The police chief informed Gary Bardwell, the father of the missing Jessie, of the long-awaited news. "I'm sorry, sir," he began. "Today will be a difficult day for your family. Unfortunately, we do not expect to find your daughter alive, but we know where she might be." A team of detectives along with FBI agents set out for a remote ranch in Farmersville, North Texas. The group arrived in the evening and immediately went searching. In the wooded area, law enforcement officers stumbled upon a piece of metal covering something. There was an unbearable smell of decay nearby. However, those who arrived were prepared not only for this, but also for what caused it. Indeed, on the other side of the shield lay a female body, wrapped in a blue sheet. The corpse was covered with a blanket and 2 red-gold towels with bloodstains. A pile of trash mixed with dirt became the improvised gravestone for the unfortunate. It was clear that the perpetrator was an amateur, as trying to hide the result of their actions, they made it more noticeable. The condition of the body was terrible. After a week under the scorching sun, it had significantly decomposed. Experts needed 7 days to officially identify the victim. For this, dental records of the presumed victim were requested. As the investigation suspected, the discovered body belonged to 27-year-old Jessie Bardwell. The examination showed that the young woman's death was the result of a crime. However, the exact cause could not be determined as the body was too decomposed. Notably, an unknown informant pointed to the location of the woman's remains. Their name was not disclosed until the end. Jessie Bardwell, a beloved daughter and friend, seemingly vanished from the home she shared with her boyfriend named Jason Lowe. Sensing trouble, Gary set off from Mississippi to Texas in search of his child. His instincts were correct. His girl had indeed been in danger for quite some time. But let's start from the beginning. It must be said that the father-daughter relationship was exceptionally strong. Gary recalled being deeply moved at the moment of Jessie's birth. She was so fragile and vulnerable that his heart melted and never belonged to him again. Jessie was born on September 10, 1988, in Pascagoula, Mississippi. Gary and Carla Bardwell were wonderful parents, and besides their daughter, they raised a son named Brandon. The siblings got along well, with the older brother always protecting his little sister from bullies. Grandma Kitty, who adored her grandchildren, was a frequent visitor. She read books to them, shared life stories, and invented various games. In short, they were the quintessential American family. Jessie herself was a joyful, cheerful, and kind girl. She had a unique style that set her apart from her friends. She dreamed of making it in the beauty industry and opening her own salon. When Jessie was 14, the family unit broke down. The Bardwells divorced. When it came time to choose whom to live with, the girl chose her father. Their relationship was warm and trusting. Gary worked as a firefighter, so Jessie often called him to check on him and ensure everything was fine. Over time, the man remarried. However, the stepdaughter and stepmother got along well. Gina was an excellent homemaker and took care of everyone in the household. Jessie understood that her father was happy and not alone with such a woman by his side, which was very important to her, since she would eventually leave the nest. After finishing school, Jessie decided to become independent, so she moved to Orange Beach, Alabama. To support herself, she worked as a waitress at the popular beachfront restaurant Cobalt. Gary remembered how she loved being near the water. It calmed her. Father and daughter kept in constant touch, exchanging messages. When he visited, they would go boating and fishing. Kimberly Esbury, the restaurant manager and Jessie's friend, learned that Jessie's father was a talented musician. Upon retiring, he devoted more time to his passion, honing his skills. As a result, he was often invited to perform at the establishment and even had his own table there. Kimberly later admitted to admiring the relationship between Jessie and her father. They were true friends. Jessie was always present at his performances. The tips she earned went towards college and her dream. At work, she met a young man named Terry Ellis, also a waiter. They started dating after some time. Their relationship was steady and serious. They seemed like a harmonious couple. However, at one of the social events, Jessie was taken by his friend Jason Lowe. Her sudden infatuation surprised everyone. It seemed she was head over heels in love with him, oblivious to everything else around her. After explaining her sudden feelings, Jessie and Terry parted as amicably as they had met. Nonetheless, this decision turned her life upside down by 360 degrees. The new boyfriend was undoubtedly handsome and promising. He had 2 degrees and a decent job. Jason knew how to present himself and was polite. However, for Jessie, the new feelings were also a ticket to a new life. When he heard about his beloved's dreams, he promised to fulfill them. Eventually, the young man needed to transfer to Dallas, Texas. Then, Jessie followed him. The new position in the technology industry promised Jason a high-paying job. Kimberly shared that Jessie saw the move more as an adventure than something that could fundamentally change her life. She certainly didn't want to part with her father for long and hesitated for a while. However, ambition and youthful idealism prevailed. She did all this in secret from Gary. She was very afraid of disappointing her father, knowing he would be against it. Therefore, she didn't tell him even when they spent their last Christmas together. Mr. Bardwell noticed nothing unusual in his daughter's behavior. She was as happy as usual, laughing and joking. So, the 24-year-old found herself in Richardson, a suburb of Dallas. Jason worked from home, while Jessie searched for a new job and scouted locations for her salon. The couple planned to marry and buy a house. However, Jessie's relationship with her father underwent a drastic change. They grew distant. The daughter stopped answering his calls. Mr. Bardwell was troubled by this uncharacteristic behavior. After speaking with Kimberly, he learned about Jessie's new boyfriend and her move to another state. Ultimately, the man accepted the news and tried to re-establish contact. That's when he discovered that Jason controlled all communications. The only way to speak with Jessie was to call her boyfriend or the home phone. After each attempt, Jason would say she'd call back. Eventually, Jessie did indeed get in touch with her father. Months later, Gary finally met the suspicious young man in person when the couple visited Pascagoula. The father tried to convince his daughter not to return to Texas. He had a strong dislike for Lowe. That time, Jessie hugged him tighter than usual. When Gary asked if everything was okay, she said it was fine. She expressed her desire to make them proud, hence her need to leave. Persuading Jessie otherwise was impossible. Despite never showing signs of distress, her father had a bad feeling. After meeting with her, he wrote a song titled "Taken," dedicated to his daughter. 4 months after moving to Texas, she stopped responding to calls altogether. The final straw came on May 8th, when she failed to wish her mother and stepmother a happy Mother's Day, uncharacteristic of her. Gary sensed something terrible had happened, especially since she missed such a cherished family holiday. He called Jason, who claimed he didn't know Jessie's whereabouts. The boyfriend mentioned they were in an open relationship, allowing her to come and go as she pleased. Gary knew this to be false. Jason contradicted himself. He was very jealous and controlled every move. The next morning, the father headed to Texas, convinced of the boyfriend's involvement in his daughter's disappearance. En route, he messaged Lowe, "If Jessie isn't home when I arrive, you're in big trouble." Upon reaching their apartment, he found no trace of his daughter or her belongings. Yet, the boyfriend persisted he was unaware of her location and awaited her return. Later, Kimberly shared details Jessie confided during their rare heart-to-heart conversations. Apparently, Jason squandered money on prohibited substances and entertainment. His promises to fulfill the girl's dream evaporated. Largely, the boyfriend pretended to be someone he wasn't. This extended to his treatment of Jessie. Publicly, their relationship appeared one way, but in private, Jason could be rude and aggressive, leading to frequent conflicts between them. With Jessie missing from the house, Gary filed a missing person report with the Richardson police. Detective Hiram Hale, a father of 3 daughters, led the investigation into her disappearance. The man was determined to uncover the truth. Law enforcement officials acted immediately. They spoke with Lowe several times and inspected the house, but found no trace of the missing woman. During the conversation, the young man mentioned that he last saw her on May 8th around 10 a.m., leaving without explanation, possibly to visit her parents. He saw her get into her Acura car and drive away. Jason kept insisting that despite strong feelings, their relationship was non-committal. He claimed he didn't control her or pry into her personal life. However, investigators received information contradicting his statements. It turned out Jessie had sold her car 3 weeks earlier, a fact he surely knew since he was present at the sale. This raised questions for the investigators, prompting them to interrogate him again. On May 12th, during a subsequent search of his home, police found a strip of powder on a plate in the kitchen. The substance turned out to be cocaine. The investigation then focused on Lowe's garage and the vehicle inside it. Initially resistant, citing the garage was shared and needed others' permission for a search, Lowe eventually ceased his objections. Upon entering, officers immediately noticed a smell characteristic of crime. Jason Lowe's Audi was mud-splattered, and its bumper was detached. Police suspected that Jesse Bardwell might be inside the car. Although the vehicle was empty, the smell of decomposition intensified. Inside, they found the broken bumper and what appeared to be bloodstains in the trunk. When experts sprayed a luminol-based substance, the cargo area lit up with blue light. Blood, presumably belonging to the missing woman. Jason explained he got stuck in the mud while searching for his girlfriend, catching the bumper on a bush. He remained adamant about not knowing her whereabouts. He could not explain the blood in the car or the presence of controlled substances in his home. Experts concluded the amount of blood in the trunk indicated the woman was deceased. Given the circumstances, the case was reclassified as a homicide. To prevent the main suspect from fleeing, he was detained on charges related to the narcotic substances. During interrogation, Lowe persisted in his narrative. When shown a photo of his loved one, he refused to provide explanations, looking emotionlessly at the picture and suggesting he was being framed for something he didn't do. Eventually, despite the absence of a body, the suspect was charged with homicide. As the search for the young woman continued, a challenging and lengthy process in the vastness of Texas, with its many rivers, lakes, fields, and forests, where a body could easily be concealed, her family, friends, and sympathetic acquaintances held a memorial service. The event took place on the beach by the water Jesse loved. Everyone prayed for her to be found and for justice for her suffering. Their prayers were answered on May 19th when Jessica Bardwell was found deceased. Her loved ones at least had the chance to mourn her and say goodbye. Gary felt it necessary to review his daughter's autopsy report. He was appalled that his girl, wrapped in a sheet and barely recognizable as a human, was discarded like trash. Her body was returned to her hometown thanks to Gary's friends. Former colleagues hired and loaded Jesse into a funeral hearse. About 1,000 people visited the First United Methodist Church to pay their respects to the victim. Kitty Bardwell, Jesse's grandmother, confessed, "If this town could be cleansed with the tears shed for Jesse, it would truly be clean." The tragedy that struck their family garnered widespread attention, with many expressing sincere condolences for their premature loss, coming forward to support the Bardwells. A year had passed. Gary sat in McKinney Jail in Texas, still reluctantly cooperating with the investigation. However, 2 facts regarding Jesse's case were eventually extracted from him. Firstly, he claimed what happened to her was an accident, planning to reveal the details in court, hoping for the jury's understanding. This made it challenging for the prosecution to build their case during the trial, much to the delight of Andy Farkas, Lowe's attorney. Farkas staged a mock trial with outsiders acting as jurors. Based on the available evidence and Jason's confession, the mock trial regarding Jessica's case fell apart. 15 pseudo-jurors decided to acquit Lowe. Farkas hoped that knowing the truth, a real court would also deliver a not guilty verdict. Remember the anonymous tip about the victim's body location? It turned out that information came from Jason himself. This became another piece of evidence obtained during the investigation. The prosecution offered a deal to reduce his sentence by half if he disclosed Jesse's location. After deliberation and consultation with his lawyer, he agreed, requesting that the source of the information remain confidential until the trial. The deal was motivated by law enforcement's desire to allow Jesse's family to say goodbye and bury her body humanely. As time went on, the grief-stricken father longed for justice. To quell his raging fury, he once decided to take a unique approach. Gary printed a photo of Jason, placed it on a stump, and pounded it with a 12-pound sledgehammer. This form of psychological therapy offered him some, albeit small, relief. Mr. Bardwell confessed to struggling to get out of bed in the mornings, living with the hope that Lowe would soon face trial and be convicted for the murder of his only daughter. He blamed himself for what happened, regretting not convincing his daughter to stay, or at least break up with her controlling boyfriend. Jessie once called her father, admitting he was right after arguing with Jason, who had kicked her out. She was sheltered by a new friend, but returned to her boyfriend the next day, giving him another chance. Gary had no choice but to accept his daughter's decision, a choice he would deeply regret later. When the trial finally began, Mr. Bardwell arrived in Texas, determined to achieve just punishment. Prosecutor Cynthia Walker began her opening statement by characterizing Jason. Most viewed him as a complex personality with few friends, mostly avoided due to his long history with controlled substances, often leading to uncontrollable rage. Perhaps Jessie was caught in one of these moments. Prosecutor Wes Wynn called Lowe's former girlfriends as witnesses. They confirmed the prosecution's claims about his aggression, sharing fears for their lives due to his jealousy-driven violence. Like with Jessie, he isolated them from family and friends, displaying clear manipulative and pathological lying traits. Hence, each ended their relationship, which was no easy feat, requiring caution and cunning. Conversely, Lowe showcased his superiority among men, effectively pulling the wool over people's eyes. Jason quickly responded to these court revelations. He disclosed starting substance use at 13, influenced by friends, leading to addiction. Nevertheless, he strived to not lose his way in life, achieving multiple degrees and working for a renowned global company. Lowe confessed his desire to fulfill Jessie's dream out of love, aiming to build a family with her. In contrast, the prosecution painted a picture of a man far from someone who had recently lost his beloved, and here's why. The investigation determined that the young woman's demise occurred between May 1st and May 3rd, presumably on the day when the Jordans, the couple's neighbors, last saw her alive. Following an argument that led to Jessie's demise, Jason moved her body to the garage and placed it in the trunk of his car, where it remained for several days. The blood traces found in the Audi indeed belonged to Jessie. He later transported her body to a remote farm and concealed it in the nearby woods. It was established that the sheet wrapping the body was part of Lowe's bedding set, which was still found in his home. Fearlessly using it even after Jessie's death, while her body was decomposing in the car, the accused continued to see other women. His phone was filled with corroborative messages and intimate photos, which he sent to these women before meeting them at his apartment. Jason explained that he was trying to distract himself and forget, often indulging in substance use, claiming it made dealing with reality easier. The investigation learned of Jason's presence at Jessie's time of death through a clever manipulation. As the suspect had long denied involvement, detectives asked Tommy Jordan, an acquaintance, to speak with Jason. During their monitored conversation, Lowe admitted he messed up and made a mistake, confessing to an unfortunate accident with Jessie and his guilt, albeit for criminal negligence. Law enforcement took this as a confession. Realizing the investigation was on to him, Jason struck a deal with the prosecution and disclosed the body's location. At the trial, he finally shared his version of events. That evening, he and Jessie took pills that enhanced libido and then became intimate in the shower. At one point, Jason slipped, followed by Jessie, who hit her head on the porcelain bathtub. She then sat down, complaining of feeling hot and dizzy. Jason claimed he offered to call an ambulance, but Jessie refused, suggesting rest and sleep would suffice. However, he found her unconscious the next morning, lying on his chest without breathing. Despite his attempts to revive her, Jessie was dead. Fearing being accused of homicide, he hesitated to call the police and decided to act on his own, initially leaving the body in his car. Days later, he resolved to hide the body on a remote farm, where he carelessly disposed of his former lover in a pile of trash without a proper burial. His story might have been believable if not for the defendant's character and the forensic medical examination findings. The woman had suffered cranial injuries, which couldn't have resulted from slaps to the face. indicating Jason attempted to conceal evidence of a beating. Thus, his entire narrative was fabricated. After a 6-hour deliberation, the jury found him guilty. Judge Scott Becker sentenced the criminal to 50 years in prison. The term could have been longer, up to 99 years, but was reduced due to Jason's deal with the prosecution as agreed. Lowe won't be eligible for parole until at least 2041. At the verdict announcement, Gary was relieved justice prevailed, yet he saw no remorse in the young man's eyes. Standing with the victim's father were Jason's ex-girlfriends. One, Chrissy Chambers, remarked that if she could say anything to Jesse, it would be, "Run, just save yourself." To this day, the convicted Lowe denies his guilt in the homicide, insisting it was an accident. The love of his life decayed in his car while he continued to live and entertain himself. Tragically, Jesse Bardwell saw the dark side of Jason Lowe too late. Daddy's girl hadn't realized how deceitful and brutal men could be, having always had a model of male integrity and care in her father Gary. Regrettably, scoundrels possess a peculiar charm, easily lying or embellishing to intrigue or enamor. This story is a cautionary tale that a woman must choose herself, her safety, and her freedom always and regardless. Otherwise, the story's end can be tragic, not just for her, but for her entire family. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. Stephanie Scott, 26 years old, was kind, intelligent, and always smiling. From childhood, she was curious and active, participating in school clubs and sports. As an adult, she followed in her father Robert's footsteps as a teacher, sharing his passion for education. She taught English and drama at Leon High School, taking great pride in her work. Stephanie and Aaron knew each other from a young age. They spent time together, shared interests, and played sports in their hometown. They were close friends until Aaron turned 21, when their relationship blossomed into romance. In early April 2015, Stephanie and Aaron were busily preparing for their wedding scheduled for the 11th. Stephanie, a perfectionist, had spent months meticulously planning every detail. Almost everything was ready with arrangements set and a honeymoon booked in Tahiti. She had recently celebrated her party. The only remaining task was to rehearse their first dance, for which they had taken many lessons. The first weekend of April reminded them that their eagerly awaited day was almost upon them. Aaron invited Stephanie to join him at a party out of town, but she declined to finish some remaining tasks, including finalizing plans for her students during her honeymoon absence. On Easter Sunday, April 5th, around 11 a.m., Stephanie Scott made her way to her school in Leon, New South Wales, to deliver some work to a deputy teacher. She parked her car on the street and to meet a colleague who lived nearby. Together, they opened the school gates and entered. Stephanie then locked the gates behind them and, with keys in hand, proceeded to the English teacher's office. There, she sent an email to a bus company confirming transportation arrangements for her wedding guests. After working for a couple more hours and feeling joyful that all her tasks were completed successfully, Stephanie left the administrative building and walked towards the gates. Aaron, aware that Stephanie had left and would be away for a few hours, grew worried as the evening approached. He had texted her the day before and received prompt replies. However, on April 5th, he got no response from Stephanie. Returning home after 7 p.m., Aaron found that Stephanie was still not back and her car was absent from the street. Managing his anxiety, he reasoned perhaps the stress of the upcoming wedding and leaving her students for an extended period had exhausted Stephanie. Maybe she wanted some alone time. Yet such complete silence was out of character for her. Even amidst wedding planning excitement, Stephanie had been eagerly sharing details about her dress and the wedding menu. She didn't appear nervous or depressed, but rather excited and ready for her big day. With his concern growing and unable to sleep, Aaron texted Stephanie again in the morning before calling her family. More than a day had passed since Stephanie's disappearance when Aaron went to the Leon police station to report his missing fiancée. The police inspected the vicinity and noted that Stephanie's car was missing too. They speculated she might have left the school and been involved in an accident or gotten stuck in a ditch or creek. Helicopters were deployed to search, while ground police headed straight to Leon High School, the last known location of Stephanie. Due to Easter Sunday and few people at the school, there were few witnesses, complicating matters further. The police conducted a thorough investigation, which included ruling out hundreds of potential suspects. A check of the school's alarm system in Stephanie's classroom revealed that she had deactivated it at 1:30 p.m. and reactivated it at 1:38 p.m. This provided the police with a precise time frame, indicating when Stephanie was in close proximity to the classroom. However, it was the only detail they could ascertain. Detectives attempted to use phone tracking, but Stephanie's mobile phone had been turned off. The last activities on her bank accounts and social media were recorded on Saturday, April 4th. Local news broadcasts began covering the story by April 7th, as hundreds in the small community of Eagle sought any information about Stephanie. This behavior was completely uncharacteristic of her, and as each day passed with her wedding approaching, hope began to fade. Stephanie's mother, Marilyn, stated that if her daughter was not found within the next few hours, it likely meant something terrible had happened. A reporter from a local newspaper in Leon reported that police resumed searching the school. They spent most of the day using digital mapping technology to study the school's premises and specifically marked the room where Stephanie worked on the day of her disappearance. A witness near Leon High School on Easter Sunday mentioned hearing strange noises around 2 p.m., like rustling and dragging something on the ground. He recalled seeing Stephanie's car under a covered walkway, but didn't think much of it at the time. Later, her car disappeared. Another witness, a school employee, told detectives about an odd conversation he had with one of the school's cleaners the morning after Stephanie's disappearance. Amidst rumors and anxious talk about the missing girl, this witness asked the cleaner when he last saw Stephanie. The cleaner replied that he hadn't seen her on the day she disappeared. Additionally, this witness noticed that the cleaner's face bore scratches. The police decided to question him further regarding these findings. For additional information, this was 24-year-old Vincent Stanford. Detectives had a brief conversation with Vincent, who explained that he stopped by the school to take out the garbage bins. Although he wasn't scheduled to work that day, he claimed he was there for a short time because was in a hurry to buy groceries. Vincent asserted he did not see Stephanie at that time and wished them luck in their search. Added that he left the school after 3 p.m. to go to the store where he always shopped. However, the police contacted the store and learned it was closed on the specified date. This led authorities to believe Vincent had reasons to lie about the store, making him a suspect in the investigation. Investigators decided to conduct another thorough interrogation of Vincent and went to his home where he lived with his mother. When they arrived, Vincent was not home. His mother allowed the police to search the house, where they found a set of keys on a red and white cord matching the description of Stephanie Scott's keys. As police were collecting evidence, Vincent arrived in his car. He was immediately detained, and his car was confiscated. In the back seat, several MDF panels were found stained with what appeared to be blood. Additionally, tire tracks in front of the house did not match Vincent's vehicle. A used condom with its wrapper was also discovered in his bedroom. Detectives asked Vincent where he had been on that day. Pointing to a camera on the front passenger seat, he said he was taking photos. When asked if they could view the camera, Vincent agreed with a shrug. Upon turning on the camera, investigators saw an image of a burnt woman's corpse lying in a wooded area. Vincent attempted to explain these away as shots from a movie he had filmed as a joke. However, police quickly realized these were actual crime scene photos with Stephanie as the victim. As a result, Vincent Stanford, the cleaner at Leon High School, was immediately arrested. His seized phone and laptop revealed numerous photos of young girls from Leon High School and from online sources, indicating stalking behavior. Sadly, Stephanie's body had not yet been found at that time. Vincent was charged with her murder on April 9th. News of his arrest spread quickly. Vincent, 24, was detained in connection with Stephanie Scott's disappearance and presumed murder. During this time, a search team found Stephanie's car abandoned in a secluded area 8 kilometers from where she was last seen. However, her body remained missing, and the search continued. Detectives worked to identify the location where the photos with the body were taken. On April 17th, 5 days after last seeing Stephanie, another witness came forward. The witness reported seeing a car near a canal around 4 p.m. on Easter Sunday. A man got out of the car and threw an object resembling a laptop into the water before driving away. The police soon retrieved the laptop from the canal bed, confirming it belonged to Stephanie. Meanwhile, divers continued searching for the slain school teacher's body in the New South Wales River area. Reporter Natalie Cooper discussed the ongoing search for Stephanie's body in a live broadcast. The 26-year-old school teacher's body still hadn't been found. Police scoured fields and vineyards near where her red Mazda had been found earlier that week. Police divers also explored the canal in the area, retrieving a laptop believed to be Stephanie's. Cooper mentioned a shrine near the site that many visited that morning. The entire community was deeply saddened, regardless of personal acquaintance with Stephanie. Her family and fiancé visited the shrine the previous night, lighting candles, praying, and comforting each other in their grief. The reporter also noted that police were desperately searching for any sightings of a white vehicle believed to be owned by Vincent Stanford, the suspect in Stephanie Scott's murder. Witnesses were urged to contact police immediately. Meanwhile, Vincent, while in custody, voluntarily approached detectives requesting to speak with them. He divulged all details, including information on where to find Stephanie's body. According to Vincent, on the day of the incident, Stephanie was in an upstairs teacher's room working on a computer with her office door open. Vincent was cleaning garbage bins using a pressure vacuum and needed to take some bins upstairs. That's when he noticed Stephanie. Vincent told detectives he suddenly had the urge to kill her and quickly went home to fetch his kit, which included handcuffs, Viagra, a knife, and cleaning supplies. He also searched online for information about incidents of violence involving brides en route. Upon his return, he found Stephanie packing up to leave. As she walked past him, she looked into his eyes and smiled, wishing him a happy Easter. That's when Vincent abruptly grabbed her and dragged her into a storeroom. Detectives reminded him of the scratches on his face that they had noticed during their first encounter and asked him about their origin. It turned out that some scratches were from Stephanie's microphone, while others came from her nails as she defended herself when he tried to kill her. Vincent described how he had grabbed Stephanie from behind, covered her mouth with his right hand, and encircled her waist with his left before taking her to the storeroom. He shut the door and violently threw her to the ground, hitting her repeatedly. After assaulting Stephanie, Vincent used a knife to end her life. He admitted feeling compelled to do so and confessed to harboring many brutal thoughts and schemes. He even mentioned having killed others before. He speculated about having psychological issues, clarifying that he harbored no hatred towards his victims, but simply enjoyed killing. Vincent then recalled feeling hungry and decided to go home for a sandwich and coffee, leaving Stephanie lying alone on the storeroom floor. After eating, he returned to the school, placed Stephanie's body in the trunk of her car, and drove it to his home, parking on the street. On Easter Monday, Vincent drove Stephanie's car with her body inside to a national park. There, he removed her body from the trunk and stripped it on the ground. He noticed numerous bruises and abrasions on Stephanie's face, including swelling on the right side and a bruise under her eye. He then decided to cover the body with branches and doused it with gasoline. Using a match, he ignited the fire and discarded it nearby. Vincent stayed briefly at the scene, taking several photos of Stephanie's body with his camera before waiting 5 minutes to ensure that the fire was fully ignited before leaving. He abandoned Stephanie's car on a secluded country road and walked back to town. In response to detectives' questions about his brutal treatment of Stephanie, although they knew this, Vincent continued denying such actions despite evidence indicating otherwise. As a result, he faced additional charges of aggravated harm and physical injury to a woman. Investigators inquired why, in the photographs, the woman was undressed except for a bra. Vincent explained that he usually removed almost everything, leaving only the bra. He wasn't sure why he did this, possibly wanting a souvenir. He admitted taking Stephanie's bra. Regarding her earrings and wedding ring, Vincent claimed he didn't remember when he removed them from the woman, but likely threw them in a trash bin along with other items. In fact, Vincent had removed Stephanie's wedding and graduation rings and sent them to his twin brother Marcus, who lived in Adelaide. Marcus sold the rings and earrings at a jewelry store, then destroyed Stephanie's driver's license after taking a photograph of it. A 24-year-old man was arrested at his home in the Adelaide Hills around 7 a.m. Neighbors were shocked that the next chapter in a murder case captivating the nation unfolded right on their doorstep. It was shocking and unsettling for their small street and community. Marcus, Vincent's identical twin, worked on a flower farm. His colleagues described him as very quiet and reserved, hardly interacting with them beyond work. During the trial, Marcus Stanford had no lawyer, and when the judge asked if there were any reasons he should not be sent to Leeton, he replied with a strong Dutch accent that he had never been there and did not need to go. However, the next morning, he was taken to Sydney under police escort and remained in custody. Stephanie's family was further devastated when the police announced a second arrest in Stephanie's case, Vincent's twin brother Marcus. Finally, the search for the missing Stephanie came to an end. In fact, while Vincent was still giving his confession, the police had already located Stephanie's body a day before her wedding date. Court events unfolded unexpectedly. At first, Vincent denied his guilt, making the proceedings uncertain. However, based on the evidence presented by the police, it was determined that the case could lead to a conviction. Psychological tests indicated that Vincent might be a serial killer and posed a significant danger. He displayed a lack of emotions and sympathy and often laughed. Several disturbing moments from his past came to light. Vincent Stanford was born in Australia, but his family moved to the Netherlands when he was 3 years old. They later returned to New South Wales when he was 7. At age 7, he dreamt of committing murder. At 12, he nearly strangled his teacher. Classmates called him a psychopath due to issues with violence and disobedience, resulting in him being sent to a behavior correction school. Vincent said he could never adapt to society and was later placed in a psychiatric center where he was diagnosed with autism and oppositional defiant disorder, ODD. After being released, he told police that he attempted to enter university or join the army, but faced rejection in both cases. Consequently, he worked various jobs before becoming a cleaner at Leon Middle School. Initially hired for 5 weeks, his contract was extended. While working at the school, he often hid in the women's restroom during student lunch breaks to watch them. When detectives examined Vincent's mobile phone, they discovered that he had stalked girls at the school and 2 other women working nearby before murdering Stephanie. Numerous photos, about 2,000, of one young girl were found on his phone. Upon careful examination of Vincent's car, stains on MDF panels confirmed Stephanie's DNA presence. Additionally, during a search of the Stanford residence, investigators discovered traces of Stephanie's blood on a knife, several condom packets, and her bra. After admitting to selling Stephanie's rings, destroying evidence, and assisting Vincent in concealing facts, Vincent's twin brother Marcus was sentenced to 15 months in prison. The judge stipulated Marcus's sentence did not allow for early parole, since no such practice exists. Marcus's sentence was specifically 1 year and 3 months for his involvement in Stephanie Scott's murder. This sentence was set to conclude on September 9, 2016. If Marcus had not entered a guilty plea, he would have faced 1 year and 8 months in prison. In October 2016, Marcus was released. Over 60 people signed a petition calling for an appeal regarding Marcus Stanford's sentence, describing it as inadequate. Following his release from prison, Marcus briefly returned to Lyon with his mother. However, the local community clearly communicated that he was unwelcome there, and his current whereabouts are unknown. Since his release, Marcus has publicly apologized for his actions and claimed he would cause no further trouble. He admitted that his actions were extremely foolish and regretted being unable to change the past. Furthermore, Marcus wishes for no contact with Vincent and does not seek any relationship with him. Their father, Steve, expressed both confusion and fear over Vincent's actions and has no desire to communicate with him either. He categorically rules out any possibility of meeting Vincent and wants nothing to do with him. Steve stated he cannot fathom why Vincent committed these crimes and does not intend to seek an answer. On the day before Stephanie's 28th birthday, Vincent Stanford was sentenced to life imprisonment for murder and an additional 15 years for sexual violence under aggravating circumstances. Both sentences were effective from April 8, 2015. During the trial, Stephanie's mother Marilyn remarked that Vincent was incapable of coping with his own life and consequently took Stephanie's, depriving her of a chance at a happy future. They will never grasp the full extent of their daughter's suffering, but knowing she suffered is too difficult to bear. Thus, the family prefers to retreat from public attention to mourn their beloved girl and heal their grief internally. In the future, Stephanie's relatives will not respond to questions, participate in interviews, or appear on television programs. The day after the trial, the family planned a celebration of Stephanie's brief, yet remarkable life on what would have been her 28th birthday, the second birthday they've marked without her. A tea party featuring mint cookies was scheduled for 3 p.m., and Stephanie's mother invited everyone to join them. The Scott family also called for stricter screening and evaluation processes for school staff to prevent similar incidents in the future and reduce risks to students like those faced by Stephanie Scott. Tragically, more than a year after Stephanie's death, her father Robert succumbed in a bizarre accident when a tree fell on him. He was buried close to where his daughter rests. Having lost Stephanie, Aaron moved to Europe in hope of healing his pain tied to New South Wales. 5 years after losing his beloved sibling, Aaron met a new love and announced his engagement to Samantha. The community of Leeton was profoundly affected by Stephanie Scott's tragic story. She will never be forgotten. Her life's narrative has been immortalized in books. Stephanie's family hopes people will remember her remarkable qualities, her passion for teaching, helping others, and mentoring them. They believe she embodied all the good qualities of a human being and significantly impacted many lives. In her memory, her loved ones encourage everyone to be kind and strive to do good in the world. Stephanie Scott's story leaves a profound mark that inspires all who hear it to live lives filled with care for others.